My 6-year-old son is a hubby's brother's house. I hear voices from the wall. He put his ears close to it. Let me introduce myself. My name is Michelle, and I'm a woman in my 40s working in healthcare. I first met my husband, Henry, 20 years ago when we were both in college. At the time, I was studying in a medical program to become a nurse. Henry, on the other hand, was an engineering major who loved diving into detailed projects and theories. Our paths crossed one day in the university cafeteria. I accidentally dropped my textbook, and Henry picked it up for me, sparking a conversation. I was drawn to his sincere demeanor, and we gradually grew closer until we started dating. After graduating, I began my career as a nurse while Henry started his journey as an engineer. We grew together, supported each other, and eventually got married. Later, we welcomed our wonderful son Andrew into the world, making our family even happier. Andrew is now 6 years old with an inquisitive nature and a rich emotional sensitivity. Henry and I love him deeply and cherish every moment of raising him. On weekends, we enjoy going to the park or reading picture books together as a family. Henry's brother, John, also values family just like us. John has found success as an architect and has built a happy home with his wife, Sandra. Their daughter, Joyce, is 10 years old. She's a bit introverted, but is always warmly looked after within the family. One day, our family decided to visit John's home after a long time apart. We hopped in the car and headed towards John's place. During the ride, Andrew gazed out the window and asked, "Mommy, what kind of stories does Joyce like?" I smiled and replied, "I heard Joyce loves animal stories. Since you love animals too, I'm sure you two will have lots of fun chatting." As the car entered a quiet suburban area, John's house came into view. It was an impressive 2-story home with a well-maintained flower bed sprawling across the front yard. "This is Uncle John's house," Henry announced, and Andrew's eyes lit up. "It's so big," he exclaimed. We parked the car and walked to the front door where John and Sandra greeted us with warm smiles. John embraced me and said, "It's been a while, Michelle. How have you been?" "I'm doing well, Sandra. It's so wonderful to see you," I replied. Sandra welcomed us inside to relax and get comfortable. Joyce waved shyly at Andrew, who returned the greeting with a bashful, "Hi, Joyce." She took his hand and said, "Hi, Andrew. Let me show you around the house." Stepping inside, we were greeted by a spacious living room filled with warm-colored furniture and decor, creating an instantly soothing ambiance. As we settled into the living room, Sandra brought us some freshly brewed tea. "Thank you, Sandra. Your home is absolutely lovely," I complimented, to which Sandra replied with a smile, "Thank you. We're so happy to have you all here." Meanwhile, Henry and John were engrossed in shop talk. John excitedly described his latest architectural project, and Henry listened intently, sharing in his enthusiasm. "You know, John designed this house himself," Sandra mentioned, much to my surprise. "Really? That's incredible, John. To think you designed such a beautiful home," I marveled. As dinner time approached, Sandra and I found ourselves in the kitchen preparing the meal together. While cooking, Sandra confided, "I hope Joyce and Andrew get along well. She's a bit shy, you know." I reassured her, saying, "Don't worry, Sandra. Andrew makes friends easily, so I'm sure he and Joyce will hit it off in no time." Dinner was a joyful affair, filled with laughter around the table as the children exchanged stories. Andrew shared tales from his favorite picture books, and Joyce listened with delight. As the night grew late, Sandra suggested, "It's about bedtime. Andrew, would you like to have a sleepover in Joyce's room?" Andrew happily agreed, and Joyce smiled, saying, "Sure, let's have a sleepover." We retired to our respective rooms as a peaceful night settled in. Henry and I sat on the living room couch reflecting on the day's events. "It was so nice to have everyone together like this after so long," I said, and Henry quietly replied, "Yeah, it makes you appreciate the importance of family." Late into the night, the house was enveloped in stillness. Andrew was sound asleep in Joyce's room, while Henry and I rested in the guest bedroom. I was drifting off, wrapped in a cozy weariness, when suddenly something stirred me awake. In the dimly lit room, I found Andrew standing beside my bed, his small hand gently shaking my shoulder as he whispered, "Mommy, Mommy, wake up." I rubbed my sleepy eyes and looked up at Andrew. "What's the matter, sweetie? It's so late." Andrew's face was etched with worry. "I woke up to go to the bathroom, but I heard a voice coming from the wall in Joyce's room. It was scary and I couldn't fall back asleep. A voice, what do you mean? I asked cautiously. It's true, Mommy, believe me, I heard someone saying help me from inside the wall, he said, tears welling up in his eyes. I hugged Andrew close and gently stroked his hair. It's okay, honey. I'm sure it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe you had a bad dream. It's very late now, so let's sleep together tonight. At that moment, Henry stirred awake. What's going on, Michelle? Did something happen? I explained the situation to Henry. Andrew says he heard a voice coming from the wall in Joyce's room. Henry furrowed his brow. A voice? That can't be right. Maybe he misheard some other noise. Andrew pleaded again. Daddy, it's true. I'm too scared to sleep. Henry looked at Andrew, smiling gently. It's okay, champ. Dad will give you a big hug. Don't worry now. Let's head back to Joyce's room, though. Still looking uneasy, Andrew nodded at Henry's words. I walked Andrew back to Joyce's room and tucked him into bed once more. Mommy, do you think Joyce heard the voice too? Andrew whispered. I'm not sure, but Joyce seems to be sleeping soundly, so I think everything's okay. If anything else happens, let me know right away, I said, kissing Andrew's forehead and speaking softly. After making sure Andrew was asleep, I returned to the guest room, where Henry was sitting on the bed, waiting. How'd it go? Andrew's still a bit frightened, but he seems to have calmed down for now, I replied. Yeah, I'm sure he'll feel better in the morning, Henry said, and we settled back into sleep. As dawn approached, I found myself in a strange dream, a shallow slumber in the darkness. Someone was calling out for help. When morning came, the house was once again filled with cheer. The sound of children's laughter echoed through the halls, and Sandra had prepared a lovely breakfast. It almost seemed like last night's events were just a dream, with everyone going about their day as usual. However, somewhere in my heart, I couldn't shake Andrew's words. A nagging worry spread through my chest as if his small voice was revealing some greater truth. Michelle, breakfast is ready. Henry's voice pulled me back to reality. I smiled at him and replied, Thank you, hoping for a pleasant day ahead. I decided to enjoy breakfast with my family. Little did any of us know that another strange occurrence awaited us that very night. After breakfast, the children spent the day playing in the yard and drawing pictures inside the house. Meanwhile, the adults enjoyed conversations over tea in the living room and watched an American football game on TV. Everyone had a delightful time throughout the day. For dinner, Sandra prepared a heartfelt meal. Laughter filled the air as we gathered around the table, feeling the warmth of our family bond. As the evening grew late, the adults continued chatting in the living room, wine glasses in hand. Eventually, it was time for everyone to retire to their rooms for the night. Today was so much fun, I said to Henry as I sat down on the bed. It was. There's nothing quite like having the whole family together, Henry agreed, looking content. Suddenly, there was a faint knock at the bedroom door. I opened it to find Andrew standing there, a frightened look on his face. Mommy, I heard it again from inside the wall, someone saying, help me. Andrew's voice trembled. Though surprised, I calmly asked, Really? Where did you hear it? I heard it from the wall next to Joyce's room. Please come and see, he said, tears welling up in his eyes once more. I turned to Henry and said, Andrew says he heard a voice from the wall again. Maybe we should go check it out together. We headed towards Joyce's room with Andrew. The hallway was eerily quiet, an unsettling atmosphere hanging in the air. As we entered Joyce's room, she was sound asleep, but Andrew pointed towards the wall. Here, this is where I heard it. Henry and I put our ears close to the wall. At first, we couldn't hear anything, but gradually a faint sound became audible. Then suddenly a clear voice cried out, Help me! A chilling sensation ran down my spine. Henry, I heard it! Henry nodded, his expression tense. Yeah, there was a voice. Suddenly, John's voice rang out from behind us. What are you doing? We turned around to see John standing there. Stay away from that wall, John. What's going on? We can hear a voice coming from inside this wall, Henry exclaimed. A voice? What are you talking about? You haven't heard anything, John shouted angrily, trying to approach us. At that moment, Sandra appeared and grabbed John's arm. Stop it, John. No more secrets. We can't keep hiding this anymore. It's time to tell everyone the truth. Sandra's voice trembled, but there was determination in her words. Hey, pause for a moment. Would you care to support us? Like this video and subscribe for more? Now let's dive back into the story. Henry walked up to John and calmly said, "Tell us what's hidden behind this wall." John remained silent for a while, but eventually let out a sigh as if he had made up his mind. "All right, I'll tell you. But first, let's break down this wall." I was surprised by John's words, but Henry remained composed. Sandra brought a hammer and Henry faced the wall. Andrew held my hand tightly and Sandra watched with a tense expression. Joyce, who had been sleeping until now, stood next to Sandra, staring at the wall. In the next moment, Henry swung the hammer down, striking the wall. A hole opened up, and a faint light seeped through. Henry swung the hammer a few more times, breaking apart the wall. The sound echoed, and the wall slowly crumbled. Throughout this, Andrew held my hand tightly, his face filled with worry. "Almost there." Henry wiped his sweat and brought the hammer down with even more force. With that strike, the wall collapsed, revealing the figure of a frail child inside. The child, wearing tattered clothes, was crying, chained up. "Help me!" The voice was so heartbreaking that we were left speechless, unable to do anything but stare at the scene before us. It was a reality that we couldn't comprehend. In an instant, Sandra trembled, tears welling up in her eyes. John stood silently, head hung low. His face was etched with deep regret and anguish. "John, who is this child? Why are they here?" Henry asked quietly, but his voice contained a hint of anger. The room was enveloped in silence, and everyone's gaze was fixed on John. Sandra rushed over to the child who had emerged from the wall, embracing their frail body. The child looked around with frightened eyes. John began to speak slowly. "This child is our second child, Joyce's brother, Peter." "Joyce's brother? Then why is he here?" I asked, and John continued. "Peter was born with severe autism. He had difficulty communicating verbally and faced many challenges in daily life due to sensory sensitivities. He would sometimes have intense panic attacks in unexpected situations. I was afraid of how our family would be perceived if the world knew about him, so I concealed him inside the wall." "You hid him inside the wall?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Yes," John answered in a low voice. "I concealed Peter from society so no one would know about him. Even when Sandra opposed it, I ignored her. I believed it was for the good of the family. I thought Peter's existence would tarnish our reputation." Henry said, his voice filled with anger, "It's insane to subject a child to this." John grimaced. "You wouldn't understand. You have no idea how cruel the world can be. The prejudice and discrimination a child faces simply for having a disability. I did my best to protect my family from that." "Your best? This?" I couldn't help but say, "John, you gave in to your fears and sacrificed Peter?" I said, my voice shaking with anger. John replied coldly, "Sacrifice? No. This was a choice made for the family. Peter needed special care, but that didn't mean the entire family had to suffer for it. I considered the happiness of the whole family." "The happiness of the whole family? And this is the result?" Henry shouted, his voice filled with rage. "Your way is wrong. Peter needed proper care and love. By taking those away from him, you failed as a father." John's face turned red. "What do you know? I've always done what's best for my family. You have no right to deny that," Sandra pleaded, trembling. "John, please stop. You were wrong." John was shaken by those words and fell silent for a while. "I was wrong? No, I was trying to protect my family." Sandra continued, "John, what you did didn't protect Peter. It hurt him, and it hurt me and Joyce, too." John looked confused and said in a trembling voice, "But to protect you from the eyes of the world." At that moment, Andrew said in a small voice, "Mommy, Daddy, families are supposed to love each other, right?" Andrew went on, "Peter is Joyce's family, isn't he? Then we should love Peter too. I want to play with Peter." John looked into Andrew's innocent eyes and was at a loss for words. "Play with Peter," Andrew added. "Families should all be together and help each other. Hey, Daddy, Peter looks cold. Please help him. I'll help too." John was deeply moved by those words. He remained silent for a while, but eventually hung his head. "It seems I was wrong putting Peter through this. It's unforgivable." Sandra wiped her tears and said gently, "It's not too late to start now. From now on, let's love and support Peter together. Joyce, Peter, and us, we can all be happy." With tears in his eyes, John said, "I'm truly sorry for everything until now. From now on, I'll accept Peter as part of the family. I'll never hide or hurt him again. I'll protect him with all my strength." John slowly approached Joyce, knelt and met her eyes. "Joyce, this is Peter. You might not remember, but he's your little brother. Daddy has been hiding him, but from now on we'll spend time together as a family. Will you love your little brother?" Joyce had a mix of surprise and confusion on her face, but eventually nodded quietly. "Peter, hello, I'm Joyce, your big sister." Those words warmed my heart. I could see that Joyce's innocent acceptance moved John and Sandra's hearts even further. Henry looked at John. "You'll have to show it, not just in words, but in actions. Peter needs proper medical care and attention. Joyce will need care too. We'll help, but you need to truly change." John bowed deeply. "Thank you, Henry, and I'm sorry for getting you involved in this. I promise to love and protect Peter as a family from now on." Sandra added, "I feel the same way. I vow to keep loving Joyce and Peter." I felt a little relieved by those words. I hope so this child never has to suffer again. After that, we immediately took Peter to the hospital. Fortunately, there was a hospital nearby that accepted patients at night. Sandra stayed by Peter's side, and John seemed to have regained his composure. Henry asked John again, "John, what do you plan to do from now on?" John closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "I'll make sure Peter gets all the care he needs. I swear I'll never hurt him again." The hospital diagnosis revealed that Peter was suffering from malnutrition and psychological trauma. It was no surprise considering he had only been given the bare minimum of food and water. The doctor said it would take time for him to recover, but with proper care and affection, he could overcome it. Sandra held Peter's hand and said through tears, "I'll always be by your side from now on." John apologized to Sandra again. "Sandra, I truly did something unforgivable. From now on, I'll do everything I can to support Peter." A few weeks passed, and Peter began to show signs of recovery as he received rehabilitation and counseling. His expression gradually regained vitality. John took care of Peter every day, doing everything he could for him. Henry and I also visited John's house regularly, watching over them and realizing that John was truly trying to change. Andrew seemed happy to be able to play with Peter, and they slowly deepened their bond. John and Sandra showed a positive attitude towards rebuilding their family. Sandra said, "John, let's grow together as a true family with Peter from now on." John nodded deeply and replied, "You're right, Sandra. We still have a lot to learn. Let's walk through life together with Peter." Laughter returned to John and Sandra's home, and the children's smiles began to shine once again. Several months passed, and both our family and John and Sandra's family had regained a sense of peace. Peter showed a remarkable recovery. The whole family worked hard for him, and their efforts were beginning to bear fruit. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, we decided to invite John, Sandra, Joyce, and Peter to the park. Peter played on the playground with Joyce and Andrew, and their laughter was constant. Every time we saw his smile, we felt a deep sense of relief and joy. John watched them and smiled at us. "Thank you so much for that time. Family is a wonderful thing," Henry replied. "It sure is. The most important thing now is that everyone is happy." Just then, Andrew came running up to us. "Daddy, Mommy, look, Peter can ride the swing now." Peter was gradually learning to express his emotions, and now we could see him playing with Andrew, both of them smiling. "It looks like fun, Andrew. Peter seems to be having a good time too," I said, smiling as I patted Andrew's head. That evening, our family stopped by John and Sandra's house to have dinner together. When the table was set, Peter sat in his seat and enjoyed the meal with everyone. "Peter, how was your day?" John asked gently. Peter replied a little shyly, "It was fun." Those simple words filled us with genuine joy. His recovery was a beacon of hope for all of us. "Let's keep having fun times like this together," I said, looking around at everyone. Henry nodded vigorously. "Yeah, there's nothing more important than every one of us being happy." That night, before we left for home, John approached us again. "Michelle, Henry, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I'd still be walking down the wrong path." Henry smiled and said, "What matters is what's ahead, John. We'll always be here to support you." John said gratefully, "Thank you. I'm truly grateful. From now on, I'll do everything I can to make sure our whole family is happy." That night, after we got home, we fell into a peaceful sleep, just like John and Sandra. Our family vowed to continue living happily, supporting and loving each other. Let's conclude the story shortly. The warmth of family love and forgiveness had filled John and Sandra's home. Peter, no longer hidden away, blossomed under the care and affection of his family. He learned to communicate, his laughter echoing through the house, a testament to the power of love and acceptance. Andrew and Joyce became inseparable, their bond strengthened by the shared experience of welcoming Peter into their lives. As for Michelle and Henry, they continued to cherish their own family, their hearts filled with gratitude for the strength of their bond. They knew that life would always have its challenges, but they also knew that they had each other, and that was all that mattered. They had learned the true meaning of family, not just as a blood tie, but as a commitment to love, support, and acceptance, no matter what life threw their way. And so, with hearts full of hope and love, they continued their journey together, their family stronger than ever before. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.